Hello, Dr. Trubow. I'm excited that you're here on Power Women Wellness. How are you?
Me too. Thanks for having me on, Lana.
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll get started on just you sharing with us a little bit about who you are, what do you do, what led you into the career that you're in.
I fell into my career. Uh, many, many years ago, I was sort of thinking, okay, who do I want to be in the world, right? And I decided that I didn't know who I wanted to be, but I thought I wanted to go to medicine, but I wasn't sure. So I went into sales just because I graduated college and I needed to be employed. And routinely in my sales job selling multimedia slides, business cards, brochures, I would get a medical question like, hey, Wendy, I know you're my sales rep, but and they would ask me something and I would go, I'm 22 and I'm your sales rep. So why are you asking me? And they would go, well, it just seems like you would know. So I would ask you. So I kind of took the hint and I said, okay, if the universe sees me that way, I'll listen to the universe. So I went to med school. And then in the beginning of med school, I was like, I'm never going to be in a surgical subspecialty. I'm never going to do OB. My dad did OB. So I made an appointment with the dean in like the first few months of med school saying, hey, I'm not going to go into surgery. I'm not going to go into OB. So can I just do like geriatric and pediatric rotations instead and not do the other rotations? And she goes, thanks for talking to me, but no, that's not how it works. You're going to do all the rotations. And I went, okay. So I put OB at the very end of my third year because I knew I wasn't going to do it. And then I delivered a baby and I was a junkie and I had been bitten by the baby bug. And I was like, I got to do this. So I went into OB after swearing I would never do surgery. I would never do OB. I was never going to go do what my dad did. And then I went and did what my dad did. And I actually worked with him for about 5 years after residency. So fast forward a little bit, in my 30s, I kind of hit the skids and I was really sick and I had a lot of hair loss and brain fog and brain dysfunction and anxiety and memory loss and thyroid disorder. And I developed asthma, irritable bowel, except it was, when I first got irritable bowel, nobody talked about it. So I didn't know I had irritable bowel until later when I went, oh, I have IBS. I had fertility challenges. I was wasting. My body hurt. And my husband said, oh, why don't you go see my mentor, before our insurance changes. And he diagnosed me with celiac disease, actually. So I had an autoimmune disease and I didn't know it. And I had been sick for years.
Wow.
So fast forward again, I've now been exposed to functional medicine and I decide like, I really want to do that. There's a lot of people who can do surgery. There's not a lot of people who think about women's healthcare in the way that I do and try to have you feel freaking amazing every day. So when our first company closed, we dusted ourselves off, thought about who we would want to be, and ultimately decided that what we were doing was what we wanted to do, just in a different format. So what we were originally doing wasn't financially sustainable or viable. And so we said, okay, if we're going to do it, it has to be, we can't go bankrupt doing it, right? We have to do it well. So we started this company, which is actually turning 8 in January.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
it'll be 8 years old. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a medical provider. I have 4 kids. So I got a lot on my plate. I think this would be useful for women to talk about, like, how do you do it?
Yes, yes. And how is your business set up now? How is it different? I mean, there's so many, it's so cool because it is nowadays. I know some people hate on technology, but it is really cool how we are able to connect with people from all
Yeah.
across the world and just be able to do things. So, how is your business set up?
Yeah. So we believe that you are meant to be vital, vibrant, healthy, able, and interested in intimacy until you're at least 100. And it is meant to get better than the one before. So we also believe that functional medicine should just be the way you get medical care. So we chose to be in an insurance-based practice. We did not go cash. We take insurance. And
Nice.
in order to make it, the mistake we made the first time was what we took insurance, but we didn't, because we spend longer with our clients, we're not churning through people.
Yeah.
We're not spending 10 minutes. It's 30 to 60 minutes, depending on where you are in the cycle. So that's not financially sustainable if you take insurance. So we
Yeah.
added a membership on top of it. So people pay $129 a month. It's like belonging to a gym, right? You belong to the practice.
Yep.
The appointments are longer. We do functional medicine. We take insurance. And so let's think, we're 8 years old. We have 5 medical providers, 1
Amazing.
nutritionist, 2 IV nurses, 2 performance and recovery coaches. They used to be the TB12 guys, but when TB12 closed, we hired their guys and Gave him a new name because we couldn't call it TB12. And then we have supplements and we have IVs and we have PEMF and HBOT. So we have wellness, we have medical, and we do functional medicine. So it's set up all in one.
Yes, I love it. Okay. And then gosh, your health history. Yeah, it seems like it was one thing after another. Looking back, thinking functional, like, is there something like the time of your life that you can think back to, like a root cause? Like, when did things start really going awry? Was it the stress of medical school?
I think medical school tipped me off, except I was messy before med school. I just didn't know I was messy because it was the 1980s and we never talked about that stuff. So, my genes are terrible, awful. I literally sat my parents down a year ago and I said, I love you both to pieces. I'm so grateful that you reproduced, but you really shouldn't have, because I got 2 copies of all the bad genes, right? So I have 2 copies for celiac. I have 2 copies for the MTHFR. I have 2 copies for vitamin D deficiency. I have a whole scattering of crappy detox genes. So I'm like really messy. So I was born messy. And then I had pneumonia when I was 6 months old. I don't remember this. And then I had ear infections and strep throat every year, like bam. From the time I was like 6 until I was like 14 or 15. So by the time I hit my teenage years, I had countless antibiotic regimens. Of course, it was the 1980s, so we didn't
always.
And then they developed the microwave, and then all the foods that you got in the microwave came out, and we could have these instant dinners. So that was really convenient. So I ate those, and those are in plastic. So, and my food was like just pile it on, right? And then I went to med school. So med school was kind of and then I decided not to do family practice, which would have probably been better for my constitution and my brain. But I was like, oh, I got to do the hard stuff. And I love delivering babies. So I'm going to go be an OBGYN and be awake all night and be stressful and just pile it on, right?
Yes.
So it's hard to say exactly what point, right? Because I was born, that was a point. And then I had all these infections, that was a point. And by the way, that's a hallmark for food sensitivities when you have all that inflammation. I was like, I was like a walking food sensitivity advertisement, but we didn't know that stuff back then.
No, it's so true. I was born in the 90s, and I mean, still, like, I grew up standard American, like, we were like deep in the thick of like processed food industry. And gosh, I think my day started off with like toaster strudels and like little Debbie cakes for lunch, like you name it. So yes, I feel like the 80s, the 90s were just like intense of just like fake food and tons of antibiotics, like any infection antibiotic. And my mom was definitely the one that would hold on to them too and be like, oh, your throat is sore, here's antibiotic. And I'm, little, so I don't know. And I think I'm like, oh my gosh, my parents, I can't.
They did the best they could with the information they had. Unfortunately, we have better information. It just hasn't trickled down into general population. So we're still doing the same stuff.
Yes. So I would love to hear, with you running a practice, like, what's your morning routine? Like, how do you start your day off? And this includes everything from like your morning beverage, your morning meal, whatever you do in your lifestyle to help set your day up healthy.
Okay. So the first thing I'll say is that what I'm doing today is not what I was doing 6 months ago. And so the health routines that we have are not meant to be etched in stone. They're meant to be squishy or flexible. They're meant to grow with you. So I've been doing intermittent fasting since before it actually had a name. It's just how I liked to eat. I didn't really like to eat first thing in the morning. So I tend to intermittent fast most days, but some days like today, my daughter's carpool couldn't drive her. So I ended up driving her. And by the time I got up at the crack of dawn and then drove my daughter to school a half hour away and got back, I was like, I'm really hungry. So today I actually ate at 9:30 in the morning, which I don't normally do. Normally I wait till lunchtime and I eat. So I say this because I don't want people to map on and go, oh, I have to do exactly what Wendie's doing. Because what I'm doing might not work for someone, and you have to listen to your body. So I tend to intermittent fast. We usually finish dinner like 6:30. So then I don't eat till the next day. So I'm like, oh, geez, I did intermittent fast. I just didn't do a 21-hour fast. I did a 15-hour fast. So I wake up, and the first thing I do is I wake one of my kids up because he needs to get up right when I wake up. So I wake him, and then I go back to bed and I stretch, and I probably violate all the rules because I know you're supposed to meditate in the morning. You're supposed to not do these things. But when I wake up, it works for me. I look at my finances. I make sure that we've covered payroll. I make sure that we pay the credit card down. I make sure that all the nuts and bolts there. And I go into my email just to delete all the noise, right? I get all these things and I'm like, oh, I don't feel like I can unsubscribe, but I don't want to read them. So I delete all the things that I can easily get rid of. And then I read the newspaper, well, the electronic newspaper, and then I do the crossword puzzle and the Wordle and connection. So I do 3 games to keep my brain going. And then I get out of bed. And sometimes I don't finish the crossword puzzle because it's harder, right? Like Monday and Tuesday, I always finish. Wednesday, I'm like, oh, it takes a little bit longer. Thursday and Friday, I don't usually finish before I have to get up and run around, and I finish throughout the day. So then I get up and I shower and I drink 1 to 2 cups of water with magnesium. I'm currently, it's been a really rough month. Actually, it's been a really rough few months for me from a health standpoint. It looks like I got a tick-borne illness, and it has just wreaked havoc on my system. So I've developed irritation in my esophagus. So I stopped taking all of the pills that I was taking because it was irritating my esophagus. So right now I'm doing magnesium, melatonin, mastic gum, which soothes the lining.
Love that.
And then a lot of liquid stuff. I do a liquid B vitamin. I do a liquid adrenal support. I do a liquid gut support, but I'm not really doing my typical routine because I've been so sick.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
so I do that. I get ready. I get my food ready. I typically do a shake for my first meal because I've found that when I eat a full meal, if I'm running around, I don't digest that well. And then I don't want to have gas during the day. So I do a shake at my first meal, and then I do a snack late afternoon, and then I have a full dinner. And sometimes in the middle, I'll have more food. But today I had eggs and cheese. And then I haven't eaten since then. It's been, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours. I'm not hungry yet. So I tend to try to eat when I'm hungry as opposed to not eat. I don't try to eat just because it's a certain time. I eat when I'm hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you mentioned also just the differences, because that is like health, right? That's like a journey. It's just like, it's always changing. We tend to like something gets thrown at us, whether it's like something health-wise that we develop or a loved one passes away. I mean, like life is just a roller coaster. And so it is so important to make sure that we're flowing with the roller coaster, backing off where we need to back off, adding things if we need to add it in. And do you live in a place where ticks and stuff like that are pretty common? Or
yes, I live in the Northeast, and it's like a rite of passage. So all my kids have had Lyme, my husband's had Lyme, and I'm like, I'm not going in the forest.
Wow.
So I'm not the human who does that stuff, right? And actually, I didn't even really garden this summer. I pulled a tick off myself a year and a half ago, and I literally pinched it. I went, oh, I had a tick on me. So it was it was like barely on me. And then I watched for any symptoms for a while. Nothing happened, but I got a mold exposure over the summer. And that was the thing that just sent me off the cliff. And from that mold exposure, I never quite recovered. So it was, and it just kept kind of worsening and worsening and worsening. And one day I woke up and I went, oh, I'm not okay. Like I'm really not okay.
Yeah.
But it took a while to get there because I just kept thinking like, oh, well, I'm working a lot. I'm stressed. Like the things we tell ourselves to excuse why we don't feel freaking amazing. Those are the devil. They are so nasty.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think sometimes we then get used to it, and then we don't even acknowledge that it's an issue anymore because it's just our normal. And so that I do find it very fascinating when we talk to patients in our practice, and they just are like, yeah, like, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but they don't even really sit and talk to them. They really start uncovering more. And again, they just don't even realize it because it becomes their normal. Because I know that too, we'll talk about like detoxification. Like, what are some of your go-to detox things, like routines or habits? Not technically food or supplement, you can mention those too, but also just like things in your life. Like what have you incorporated into your day that helps with your detox?
Yeah, I mean, I really prioritize sleep, which is not something I did for the first, I don't know, 40 something years of life. I was like, oh, I'll get over it. I'll sleep when I'm dead. But really what I realized was that if I don't sleep enough, I feel dead. It's not worth it. I feel terrible. So I do prioritize sleep. And I do it, since I've been so sick, I haven't tolerated the sauna, but I generally do a sauna like 4 to 5 nights a week. I just haven't tolerated it. I haven't felt well enough. So I've been doing Epsom salt soaks instead.
Nice.
And then I do IVs in my office because we offer it. So it's easy to just get that done.
Yeah.
So I do IV vitamin C, and yesterday I did glutathione. I sometimes do ALA, alpha lipoic acid. And then I also prioritize being around people who feel good. So when we restarted this company, we looked at, okay, what were the major things that didn't work? And we came up with there's 4 rules of business, and you can violate one, but if you violate more than one, if there's any external forces on the business will close.
Wow.
And we don't want to close the business again. So one is don't grow too fast. Don't be undercapitalized. Don't hire people whose mission and vision don't match yours, and don't outgrow your systems. So when you ask about how do I ensure that how do I focus on detox, one thing for me that's really important is I try only to be around people who I enjoy being around, because toxic people will shut your detox down just as fast as a car accident. So I work really hard to only be around people I enjoy.
Yeah, I love that. And has that been hard on the entrepreneur side of things? Has it been hard to find those people, especially in your workplace? Oh, I love
No,
that.
actually, our commitment is we don't work with or hire jerks. And so, I've said to my staff, if someone's really nasty to you on the phone, don't book them an appointment.
Yes, we do the same thing. We do the same thing.
Right?
I'm like, you don't get to talk to us like that.
No, we don't treat people like that. We treat people well. We expect our staff to be treated well. So we don't take people on who are nasty. We have a little bit of leeway because if you don't feel well, you might not be at your best, but you cannot be accusatory, condemn my staff. We don't behave that way in this practice. So, and we don't work with vendors who are, I'll call them jerks. It's not that they're bad people. It's just that their style of practice is not what we do. So we don't work with jerks. That's just our practice role.
Yeah. Well, I love that you created that boundary because it's so true. That's why sometimes when we're just talking to patients too of like environment or stressors or whatnot. Sometimes the hardest decisions are like leaving abusive spouses or ending toxic friendships, or even honestly putting space in between family members, even though they're family, but you just kind of need to sometimes. And honestly, it's pretty incredible seeing the healing that can happen just by doing that. Nothing nutrition related or supplement related, but simply that is pretty impactful.
Boundaries are huge.
Yes. So tell us about your sleep routine though. Do you have like a little routine that gets you like into rest and relax mode? What does that look like?
It takes me for flipping ever to get ready for bed because I get distracted. I'm reading, and then, I have teenagers in there. They want to chat at 10 o'clock. I'm like, I can't chat. I have to go to bed. But they call me at 9:30, 9:45. And I'm like, I got to dry my hair. I got to go to bed, kid. So my nighttime routine, I'm postmenopausal. So sleep changed so drastically in menopause. And then it improved when I went on bioidentical hormones. So I live in Massachusetts. I take a mixed blend of CBD THC, which is a tincture. And I do progesterone, and I do adrenal quieting supplements, and I do melatonin at night. Nice. So I do those things, and then I do magnesium. And then my routine is really just like, lately I take a bath at night, and then I wash my face, and I brush my teeth, and I floss and do all that stuff. But again, it takes forever. I don't know why it takes so long, but I do get distracted and I read. So it's like,
it is actually pretty ridiculous. And it's like little things. I do try, I'm sure you do try to stack certain things. So like I'll start like oil pulling, before you brush and floss. And so I'll do that if I'm like doing something else that, I don't need to talk for. So I try to stack them, but it does seem like at night, sometimes I'm like,
forever.
I can only just brush my teeth and like wash my face. Like that's it. I'm tapped out today. But it takes a while. When you said you live in Massachusetts, my husband was born there, but we went to Boston, or I did, for the first time, I guess a couple months ago. And I will say, I'm being in Austin and growing up in Florida, it definitely was a culture shock for me.
Different vibe. It's totally different.
Gosh. I'm like so used to like Southern hospitality, and I go there and like I'm just ordering food and like, what do you want? And I'm like, no, hi, hello, how was your day? And like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. People are just like, they're in their own world, they're go, and they just really don't care about like what you're doing. And I'm so used to like just Southern hospitality in Texas and Florida. So I was it was a culture shock for me.
Yeah, it's very different. I was saying to someone, you always know where you stand with someone in the Northeast because they'll just be
Yes.
like, I don't want to hang out with you. It's a little bit
Yes.
blunt, but you never
I
question. They're not
appreciate
going to
it.
gossip about you behind your back. They're just not going to be with you. They'll be like,
I
no.
I appreciate it, to be honest. I'm very much like an Enneagram 8, like I say it like it is, no
Mhm.
filter. So I do appreciate it, but I'm just like, man, they really do just
They're
get their
full on.
stuff done.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I love that. So I know you just shared a little bit about like what you eat in a day, the smoothie in the morning or your first meal. Do you have any go-to snacks that you rely on if you need a little something?
Yeah, I mean, I live in apple country, so and it's apple season. So, and we picked them. My kids didn't have school on the very last day of the season for apple picking, so my mom took them and they got 3 bags, bushel, like the half bushels. So I love an apple with sesame seed. I just took a CGM. I had a CGM on for
Oh.
2 weeks and then I redid it. I learned 2 things that were really, really, and 3 things actually. Okay, so 3 things from my CGM. One, I'm allergic to the glue on the CGM and I had a reaction both times.
Oh no.
So I was thinking, oh, I should find out if it's wheat or something because I'm allergic to gluten. So I had a reaction, got a big fat rash twice. And so now I'm clear that that brand of CGM is not mine. But I did learn 2 pieces of information that were actually useful aside from that. One was if I eat protein first, my blood sugar goes nowhere. Even if I eat cake, on my birthday, I ate cake. My blood sugar
Amazing.
didn't go anywhere because what I had was we made like a sheet pan of manchego cheese, which acts like a Parmesan crisp. And
Mm.
that we made that into squares. So it was like this. I had like 4 or 5 of them with chopped liver on top. And
Mm.
then I had a piece of cake. My blood sugar didn't go anywhere. So that was the first thing I learned. And the second thing I learned is that chickpeas and I do not get along. My blood sugar went crazy. So I've kind of decreased my
Wow.
chickpeas. Those are the 2 insights I had. So
Oh, cool.
in terms of snacks, I love apple with sunflower seed butter. With sunflower seeds, I love pecans. I don't eat a lot of nuts because I don't digest them well, but I do
Yeah.
eat pecans, walnuts, sunflower seeds, and pistachios. Those are my 4 go-tos. And then I'm a huge fan of eating dinner for breakfast, like leftover. We always have leftovers. So if I'm home, I'll rummage through and find something leftover because I love it.
Yeah, I love that. That is something we definitely have to work on with patients is overcoming the idea that breakfast has to be like egg or sausage or just your basic breakfast food. And it's just like any other meal, just like people have breakfast for dinner. Like it can be
Yeah.
anything. And so that's mentally so hard for some people. And I'm like, no, sometimes like leftovers or the jam. And if it's like a busy morning and all you gotta do is like heat it up, like sign me up.
Yeah. Bam, you're done. It's good.
Yes. And what about exercise? I know you haven't talked too much about like too much movement in your day, but what do you prioritize right now?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny when I got sick, I didn't tolerate cardio any longer. Like it made me want to throw up. So I do have time in my schedule to go for a walk, a hike once a week. Sometimes I make it and sometimes I don't because if I don't feel well, I don't do it.
Yeah.
But I do go and do weights 3 times a week with a trainer because I feel like I need that guidance. And so I go to the gym 3 times a week and I work out with weights. And I
Nice.
sometimes will do cardio, but I know I need more, but I just haven't felt well. So I've
Yeah.
put that to the side.
Yeah. Well, I think walking is so underrated, like I feel
Hmm.
like when people say like, oh, I need cardio, they're just talking about running. And I'm just like, no, walking, just any movement, even if it's gentle, like it still makes such big strides
Yeah. It
and
gets
healing and
sweaty.
stuff.
Gets
Yeah.
sweaty
Yeah.
somehow.
Exactly. I know you guys have really good weather for like hikes and stuff right now.
Hmm.
Like I love it. We definitely avoid hiking here in Texas during the
Yeah, it's
summer when it's
hot.
like 105. But
Yeah.
when it hits fall, I'm like, oh, it's the perfect weather.
Yeah, it's perfect for that. Yeah, our weather's pretty nice. This is looking like it's going to be a colder winter than it's been. I mean, it's already in the 20s and 30s now, which it hasn't been like
Wow.
that for years. But other than
Wow.
the cold, I don't mind a cold. I just don't like the wind or rain.
Yeah.
So kind of depends.
Yes. Yes. No, of course, we went to Boston when it was like a week, like heat, like movement. And they're like, oh, it's never this warm at this time. And I'm like, wonderful. Cause I was trying to get away from the heat and I just can't
Hmm.
escape it.
Hmm.
Do you ever feel like you have trouble just like sticking to, making sure you're taking care of yourself? Or do you feel like it just comes pretty easy because you obviously know the value of health and stuff?
I don't think that that's a yes or no question. honestly, because there's certain things I find very easy to sustain. So I find it easy to sustain doing the supplement regimens that I'm on. I find it easy to sustain the way I eat. And I'm not perfect, but I do tend towards, if it looks like itself in life, I'll eat it. And if it doesn't, I try to stay away from it. But
Nice.
look, I love the good crisp. And when I want salt, I will eat that. So so I'm not an all or nothing. I do find it
Yeah.
more difficult to sustain the exercise because it takes more time in my brain. And also I haven't felt well, but I think it's a mix. I
Yeah.
don't think it's as hard to sustain the eating. Also, when I got celiac, I said, look, if I can't eat it, we're not serving it in the house. We're not going to have it in the house. I will
Yeah.
not be excluded in my own home. And so we don't have gluten in the house. So I'm not sick ongoing, I'm not exposed
Yeah.
and sick, and my kids are sensitive. So it makes it kind of easy. So I would say the harder things are the movement, the meditation, the slowing down.
Oh yeah.
Those are harder because I'm very much a let's go and let's get this done and let's push through it. And that's been the hardest lesson to really learn, because
Yeah.
you can't push through illness. You have to honor the illness.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning that again. I'm 53. I'm learning it again because
Yeah.
I keep falling in the same pothole.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. And yes, you do have, like, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, like just that type A and productivity. And what do you do when you find yourself, or maybe this was more so in the past too, because you felt like you learned and developed from that. But when you were like trying to push through things in the past, what helped you remind yourself to slow down?
Honestly, usually I will hit the skids and have to slow down.
Mm, yeah. No other option.
I'm literally backed into the corner of having to slow down.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
because if I don't listen to the universe, it'll speak louder.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm apparently someone who needs the universe to speak loudly to me before I will listen. And it's not like I'm committed to that. I'm open to being different, but I notice that's the pattern in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I love it. Do you have any self-development books or podcasts or anything that you've like found and loved in your journey of like entrepreneurship?
So this sounds like heresy. Okay. I don't listen to podcasts because I don't have the time.
I feel that though. I feel
My
that.
my commute is 6 minutes. So by the time I even get in the car and I'm like, where am I going? And am I picking a kid up? Has anyone left somewhere? I've never lost a kid, but I'm always worried about it. And so by the time I sort of get my brain together, I'm 3/4 of the way home and I have no reception and I'm done. So I don't tend to listen to a lot of podcasts. I am an avid reader. I'm in the midst of Mary Morrissey's Brave Thinking book, which
Oh,
is all about designing a life you love and being able to live into the life you love. So I'm in the midst of that. And then I read kind of everything that comes across my face. So all genres. I love reading everything. So I read a lot.
yes.
And I do work with a coach, actually. I have a coach I talk to 3 times a week to
Nice.
continue iterating on my growth. And then other than that, no. I mean, that's kind of the
Yeah.
limit.
Oh, well, I love that. What made you realize that you needed someone to be there for you, to coach you through?
I was ticked off at my husband because at the time, so we're coming up on 3 years that I've been with this coach, and I knew her before and I've always loved her. And when I just sort of hit that, okay, I've gone as far as I can go with the tools I have, but this isn't as far as I want to go. I want to go further. But I was ticked off at my husband because we have 4 kids and a busy life, and he was amazing in the business, but at home was like a mic drop. So he didn't participate the way that I really needed him to. And so I worked with the coach to start to articulate, instead of just being ticked, what did I need to articulate? What requests did I need to make? How could I streamline the home life so that the work life was going to work better? So it wasn't an imbalance between the two. It was an imbalance in the way my husband was showing up. And we've tried a whole bunch of things. So we tried having him take on the food shopping. That was an epic failure. Epic failure.
I don't think I could give that up for sure.
Epic fail. Partly because he would call me and be like, do we need blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, I don't know. Ask our babysitter. I'm not home. Right. So I said to him, if I'm going to remain the person who thinks about the food, then I don't really want you doing the shopping if I still have to think about it. The whole goal of you doing something is you own it and I don't have to think about it. So that was a fail. What we did then, I gave him ownership of the orthodontist, making the kids' appointments, setting up the bill pay, dealing with it. Like, just own it. You own it. And that's been a win, mostly. He's done as good of a job as I could do, right? And life gets in the way. So we have been working for the last 3 years on how do we make it more even in the house, as opposed to me holding everything and him holding 10% and then being helpless, right? Like, the goal is not for him to be helpless. So he's stepped up. So I started working with her for that and to continue expanding. And it's made a big difference.
Yeah. I feel like we all need that. And I feel like sometimes we either feel guilt for spending money on that, like therapy or a coach or something. And I feel like we all need that because we do get stuck in what we know, right? And so it's always important to keep growing. I know you mentioned Brave Thinking. Is there any other books that you can think of, like, oh my gosh, that was like the best book that like I've ever read? And all the books that you've read, any ones that stand out?
No, but I'm sure I'll think of it tonight when I'm going to sleep. I'll be like, oh, that was the book.
Yeah. Right? Well, feel free to email me and I'll add it to our list.
Okay.
But yes, tell me about your book. So like, what inspired you to write this? It looks amazing.
It's fun. It's both a fun read and a horrifying read, right? Because it's all the stuff, it's all the gaps where we need to live into. I was messy again. I was messy in my 30s, and then I got messy as I hit menopause. I didn't know what I got, but what it turned out to be was I got a lead exposure when we went to France, because we went right after Notre Dame burned. And when Notre Dame burned, it released almost 500 tons of lead dust into the surrounding community. And we were there that week. Wow. So after I got this exposure, my hair started falling out. I got super fatigued. I gained 10 pounds almost overnight, just like that. And I had terrible energy. I had brain fog. I was losing my hair. I had a rash on my face. I was really, again, messy. And I started to try to figure out what was going on. You know, we're in functional medicine, so I can do all these tests on myself. And my thyroid was fine. My hormones were fine. My gut was fine. Then I was totally stumped. And then I hear the report about how when Notre Dame burned, it released 500 tons of lead dust into the air. And that I was like, oh, I got an exposure. So then I did the testing and it was positive, and I tested for all of the other toxins, including mycotoxins, which are the mold toxins in your body. I tested glyphosate. I tested the herbicides, pesticides, insecticides, plastics. I tested all of that, and a whole bunch of it was positive. And then I have all this paper kind of arrayed in front of me, and I'm like, that's positive, and that's positive, and that's positive. And I said to my husband, I'm such a dirty girl. We got to write this book. Like, I'm the poster child for healthy living, clean living, be your best self, blah, 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 all that stuff. And here I am. I'm so sick from all of these things that I didn't even really think about. So we wrote the book, not because it was based on my experience, and also to serve as a roadmap so that you don't do what I did. You don't have to be as sick as I was, because I'm the canary in the coal mine and you don't have to be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that you wrote about it, and I don't love that you had that experience, but I think it's such a topic. I feel like I say environmental toxins, people's eyes may like glaze over a little bit, like either that's like so much for them to think about, they just don't want to know anything, or they just, I don't know, again, it's underrated as one of the, I guess, drops in the bucket or root causes for some illness. Because there's so much of it, whether it's like heavy metals or BPA, it's just overwhelming. It's an overwhelming conversation to have. But I love, in the research that I have read, just to see how much like BPA impacts thyroid and how it impacts our metabolism. And, you know, I just think it's such a conversation that needs to be had that is barely being had. Like, I do see more and more people talking, writing about environmental toxins, but it's still not even close to mainstream. And I feel like it's the missing part of healthcare, to be completely honest.
I honestly feel like it's the thing, you know, all those symptoms that you have, and you think about and you go to the doctor for, and they're like, well, you're just getting older. There's nothing really wrong with
Mhm.
you. Or maybe you're just anxious, and you're like, maybe I am anxious, but I don't think it's only anxiety.
Yeah.
And so all those sort of vague but persistent things that we go to the doctor for are all those things all the symptoms that toxins are causing, and we just don't draw the connection. But
Yeah.
it really is, they really are the linchpin for our health, unfortunately, because I say unfortunate because it's not being talked about. It's just
Yeah.
this invisible I call it the invisible pandemic. You don't know why
Agree.
you're sick. You're just sick. You're like, I don't know. I'm just getting older.
I agree. And I think there's still like the stigma of your liver knows what to do. Like you have your detoxification system. And I'm like, our body doesn't even know, like we're so exposed to so much, like
Mhm.
we weren't made to be exposed to these things. So
Right.
eventually there's overburden.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
am excited that you released that beautiful gift into the world. I will definitely be reading it because I love just getting more and more knowledge about it because yeah, we need people like you that are speaking out, and sucks that you had to live through a little bit of it, but you are the canary in the coal mine and truly appreciate you. So how can we support you? Where can we find your book?
Best place
Share
is
all
on
the things.
Amazon. Amazon's the best place, but do not just type in Dirty Girl, because you're not going to get the book. You're going to get other stuff. You're not going to get that. So type in Dirty Girl Detox book. Trubow is my last name. I think you're best off typing in Dirty Girl Detox book, and that'll get you where you're headed. And you can also we sell it on our drwendy.com site, but if you have Prime, you're going to want to go, or if you have a
Yeah.
Kindle, it's just cheaper, easier, and faster, and better for the universe, not to mail something.
Yes. Yes. I love that. And then it's 5journeys.com, right? Your business.
Our bricks and mortar is 5journeys.com. That's where we see people whose insurance we take. And then the drwendy.com brand is online supplements, coaching, programs, testing. And that's for people who might not be able to get to Boston and have a visit and aren't ready to dive into functional medicine, but maybe want to dip a toe.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.